son Solomon's life, the covenant promise that obedience will be the showers of blessings was fulfilled. These significant chapters of 1 Samuel relate the story of David's early years and help us grasp the nature of the often painful process that God takes us through as he prepares us for assignments, for tasks, and for the mandate that he has called us into. Many events of these of these years can be correlated with many of David's Psalms so that we can trace not only the outward circumstances, but the inner emotional journey that David took as a young man. Of great interest to us this morning is the disturbing experiences, the mental, emotional, spiritual experiences that the king of Israel, Saul, had to undergo. Allow me to note there that this text, as I'll be jumping into it shortly, reminds us that mental, emotional, spiritual issues do not care the status or the age or positions. They can land on anyone, as you see with the King Saul. With the rejection of Saul on the part of God, the spirit of Jehovah departed from him, and the evil spirit from Jehovah had come upon him and filled his life with fear and anguish. From the rejection experience and the encounter with the evil spirit, Saul underwent an inward feeling of depression, which grew into melancholy and occasionally broke out into what we call passing fits or conversions of insanity. In most cases, this deprived King Saul of his peace of mind and stirred up the feelings, ideas, imaginations, and the thoughts of his soul to such an extent that at times it drove him even into madness. When Saul's attendants, his officers at the court, perceived the mental ailment of the king, they advised him to seek intervention. To Saul's attendants, this painful mental issue was not a death penalty. Help was available. Interestingly, in this setting and in this particular case, they capitalized on utilizing or harnessing the power of the technology of the day. We are introduced to music instruments and a musician, David. The powerful influence exerted by music upon the state of mind as was well known even in the earliest times, so that the wisest men of ancient Greece recommended music to soothe the passions, to heal mental diseases, and even to change hearts among people. Many times, including in this passage, we tend to focus on two characters, King Saul and David. But allow me, as I summarize this devotion, to draw your attention to some men whose identities are not mentioned to us, are not revealed, whose details are not given, but they offer us 5 important aspects in dealing with the mental issues. The first one is when they were able to detect the issue facing their king, according to chapter 16, verse 15. They were able to spot that King Saul had a mental, spiritual issue. I don't see this come out in our conversation, not spiritual, mental issues. Sometimes we talk about, separate them, but they spotted that. The second thing about these men, not details given about them, but I suspect that we normally overlook them in our reading. The second thing, they were able to discern the nature of intervention needed for the king. Please mark, first, they were able to detect. Secondly, they were able to discern the nature of intervention. And for them, they proposed that they would want some music brought about. Thirdly, they would also embrace the power of leveraging on the technology of the day. They knew the power of integrating some of the aspects of integration, and that is where you see technology in terms of music instruments brought into place. Number 4, These men were able to identify the relevant persons and the needed personnel to undertake that task. They recommended the son of Jesse. And number 5, they were personally involved in the process of bringing David not only from his home, but to partake in this task. May I again repeat that, because I suspect in some way this conference will highlight these 5 elements, which are seen in some men who were not mentioned. They were the capacity to detect what were the issues, and for them the spiritual mental issues were discerned. Secondly, they had the capacity to discern the nature of intervention. They had the capacity to leverage on the technology of the day to resolve a mental issue mental spiritual issue facing their king. They were able to identify the needed personnel, and finally they were involved in that process. As I close, for educationists, Professor Gladys, I think this comes in. I suspect and I propose that these men must have been through a training that embraced a curriculum that was holistic in nature. They are not seen in the positions, but they are seen as giving guidance, able to discern, able to guide, able to leverage on technology. Maybe that speaks to some of the issues of our education today, facing education. Do we have curriculums that can prepare holistic people? It is clear that this was an all-encompassing type of curriculum that grounded these attendants up to the level where they were holistically equipped. And finally, it's said in chapter 16, verse 23, whenever the Spirit from God came upon Saul and David would take his harp and play. Notice the 2 words used there. Then relief, I believe mental, emotional relief would come to Saul. And he would feel better. And the evil spirit would leave him. See how technology was incorporated in resolving the mental issues related to King Saul by men and women, let me put that way, who had undergone a curriculum of training that had equipped them for the ability to integrate this to fix a situation. We live in a society that is looking for mental relief, a society that wants to feel better. We can draw inspiration from the experience of these men who served King Saul. And so relief would come to Saul. Saul would feel better, meaning he would even be productive in his life. May this conference be the ground and the platform through which we'll be challenged to become like these attendants of King Saul, who were able to know what to do and make not only the king, but the society better, bringing relief and peace. Let us pray. And so, Father, we thank you so much for this very great day that is before us. We thank you for the opportunity that we can come together as academicians, educationists, psychologists, and all other disciplines together. And drawing inspiration from a biblical example, we can begin to anchor our conversation in the fact that we know you are interested with the whole man. It's not only that we need to be mentally healthy, but we need to be emotionally and spiritually healthy. We thank you for the Kupka initiative to be able to engage in issues like this, and those who are going to be also partakers in the education dimension of it. This morning, we are inspired to know that there were men who had gone through proper orientation and training, and were able to discern the situations of the society and the king, and they were able to provide direction which brought relief not only to the king, but to his family and to the nation. We live in a time when mental issues have become a real challenge. We live in a time when our education sector is undergoing revolution of all forms of translations. And this morning, my prayer and our prayer is that this 2-day conference will enrich, will be a resource so that we can become those who provide relief and peace. So I pray for this conference. We dedicate it to you so that as we start, our conversations will be enriched by you. Handle and hold every speaker will say something, so that at the end of the day, honor and glory will be to your name. And that relief to many who need these interventions will be found through the initiatives of this conference. We thank you. We hand over this time to you as we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
To give us a hearty clap for our provost. Thank you very much. So on to our next program, I'm going to invite Dr. Richard Moindi for the opening remarks. You're welcome, Dr.
The Deputy Vice Chancellors of Kabarak University, Professor John Achola, Professor Ronald Chipkilot, our university registrars, management board present, our keynote speakers, one virtual and one with us, our deans for the respective schools present, led by our Dean for School of Education, Professor Gladys Kiption, the directors present, led by our Director Research, Innovation and Outreach, Dr. Nyawere, the heads of departments present, faculty members, all participants, our faculty who are participating in the conference, and all our students present, recognizing the presence and the support from Gupka team, our sponsors. We have one sponsor this time round, Boresha Sako, led by Mr. Gabriel Cherop. I also saw Access Bank, our partner in this business. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Praise the Lord. We thank God for the introductory or the devotional meditation, which has focused on the theme of the day and the two conferences. So I would like to take this earliest opportunity on behalf of all the conveners and the participants involved to welcome us to these conferences. We have the 15th International Conference on Contemporary Issues and Practice in Education 2025. That's why we have two booklets. And then we have the 15th International Research Conference in Psychology and Mental Health. And by God's grace, and coincidentally, we are opening the session we are opening both of them, and we shall progress as we move on. For the benefit of our participants and guests, we have 5 conferences. I've mentioned Psychology and Mental Health, still under the School of Education, led by our convener, Dr. K. If you are in the house, you can wave. Just Dr. K is there. Then we have Social Sciences, led by Dr. Edna Cheriot as our convener. Edna Koskei, sorry, not Cheriot, Edna Koskei. Then we have Literature and Linguistics and Languages, led by Anne Yego, is present. And then Education, led by Dr. Peter Tanui. Thank you. And finally, Theology and Biblical Studies, led by none other than but our own HOD, Dr. Catherine Cheriot. Must be busy fixing a few things, but they are with us. Our esteemed management, ladies and gentlemen, the 5 conferences will be running concurrently and also successively. Some began yesterday at respective venues, which are familiar to all of us, And therefore, we would like to take this time to appreciate the support from our school and from the university management that to this point in time, we are able to have this session and proceed with the other sessions until Friday. With those remarks, I would like now to take this time to welcome our Dean School of Education, Professor Gladys Kiptoi. Let's put our hands together as we welcome our Dean. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to ride on the protocols that have been established by Dr. Moindi. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to Kabarak University for this important international conference on contemporary issues and practice in education. This year's theme, current trends in education management, policy, curriculum design and pedagogy, and psychology and mental health could not be more timely or relevant. As the landscape of education rapidly evolves worldwide, driven by technological advancements, shifting societal needs and global challenges, it is incumbent upon us as educators, administrators, policymakers, and psychologists to remain proactive and innovative. The future of education depends on how well we adapt our management strategies, policies, curricula, and teaching methodologies to these new realities. This conference offers a valuable platform for us to share research, exchange ideas, collaborate on best practices that shape the education systems of tomorrow. It is an opportunity to engage critically with contemporary challenges from inclusivity and equity to digital transformation and sustainability in education. At Kabarak University, we are committed to advancing education through holistic, evidence-based approaches that empower learners and educators alike. We recognize that effective education, management, and policy must be rooted in sound research and contextual understanding. Similarly, curriculum design and pedagogy must be dynamic, responsive, and learner-centered to prepare individuals for the demands of a rapidly changing world. I encourage all participants to actively engage in the discussions, workshops, and presentations over the coming days. Let us harness our collective expertise to contribute meaningfully to the development of education that is innovative, equitable, and impactful. Thank you for being a part of this significant gathering. I look forward to the fruitful outcomes that will emerge from our shared commitment to advancing education. God bless you all. Thank you. I would then like to take this opportunity to welcome our DVC, Professor John Ochola, to come and do the opening speech. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Gladys Kiptoi, the Dean of School of Education, Humanities, and Social Sciences. Professor Chris Odindo, keynote speaker for the International Conference on Current Trends in Education Management, Policy, Curriculum Design, and Pedagogy. Professor Frederick Mzee Awuor, keynote speaker for the International Conference on Psychology and Mental Health. Members of the University Management Board present. Guest speakers, Dr. Catherine Amulundu, Chair, Kenya University's Professional Counselors Association, represented now by Dr. Rose Otieno. Professor Moses Mpima Kibirango, Director, Quality Assurance, University of Eastern Africa, Baraton. Mr. Paul Solomon, CEO and founder, Solomon's International. Professor Wendo Nabea, Department of Literary and Linguistics Studies, Laikipia University. Professor Gladys Kition, Dean, School of Education, Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Philip Nyawere, Director, Research, Innovation and Outreach. Heads of departments in the School of Education, Humanities and Social Sciences, members of faculty, esteemed participants, all our partners and supporters, our esteemed students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are here this morning to do two things. One is to officially open the conference, International Research Conference on Contemporary Issues and Practice in Education. And the other one is to also officially open the International Conference on Psychology and Mental Health. Our Vice Chancellor is actually the presiding Chief Executive Officer in this conference. And he normally makes every effort to be there whenever we have such an important function. But this morning, because of circumstances beyond his control, he could not be with us here physically. But he is with us. You can feel his presence around. So our Vice Chancellor has sent his greetings, very warm greetings to all of us in this conference this morning, which I hope you all receive. And then he has also sent his sincere apologies for not being here physically. So kindly receive his apologies. But he left me here with his speech, which I will now proceed to present on behalf of our Vice Chancellor. So with all those protocols, our Vice Chancellor greets us as good morning. And he continues to say, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to Kabarak University and to our 15th International Research Conference. This part of the conference is being hosted by the School of Education, Humanities and Social Sciences to explore the theme, Current Trends in Education Management, Policy, Curriculum Design, and Pedagogy. This theme resonates deeply with the transformation shaping education nationally and globally. The emerging technology, globalization, and new challenges have brought a paradigm shift in how we teach, how we learn, and how we assess the students. In Kenya, the implementation of the competency-based education is one of the most significant educational reforms in recent history. CBE represents a deliberate move from rote learning toward a learner-centered and skills-oriented approach that nurtures creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and problem-solving. It calls for a fundamental rethinking of pedagogy, assessment, and teacher preparation. I am glad that these issues have been identified for interrogation in this conference. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, beyond CBE, we must reflect on broader trends in education management and policy, including digital transformation, artificial intelligence, mental health in learning environments, and ethical leadership in education. The future of learning demands that we integrate technology meaningfully while preserving human connection, compassion, and moral grounding, values that are integral to the vision and mission of Kabarak University. At Kabarak University, we are proud to contribute to national conversations on curriculum reform and educational innovation through our teaching, research, and community engagement. To this end, our School of Education, Humanities and Social Sciences continues to play a pivotal role in preparing competent educators who not only master content, but also model integrity, creativity, and service. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, alongside the conference on current trends in education management, policy, curriculum design, and pedagogy, we are also proud to host the International Conference on Psychology and Mental Health, exploring the theme, Investing in Mental Health, Innovation and Digitalization for a Sustainable Future. We are doing this because we are convinced that it is imperative for counselors, psychologists, researchers, and academicians to explore how we respond to one of humanity's most presiding challenges, the mental health crisis of our age. Mental health has become a serious national concern, placing a heavy burden on the country's health system and socioeconomic development. To play our part in addressing this challenge and to support the government's National Health Policy 2015-2030, Kabarak University continues to partner with the Kenya Universities Professional Counselors Association, KUPCA, in which the university and the association are partnering to further the advancement of quality mental health provision in Kenya and to enhance teaching, research, innovation, and outreach activities at the university. We are greatly privileged to have in this conference representatives from KUPCA, led by Dr. Catherine Amulundu, Chair, Kenya Universities Professional Counselors Association, and Dr. Amulundu is also one of our guest speakers in this conference. Globally, mental health conditions have reached alarming levels. The World Health Organization reports that 1 in every 8 people, nearly 1 billion individuals, live with a mental health disorder, depression and anxiety. According to the World Health Organization report, suicide claims over 700,000 lives annually. Many of them are young people. The COVID-19 pandemic worsened this crisis, leading to a 25% global increase in anxiety and depression. These figures remind us that mental health should be taken seriously, as it is the foundation of individual productivity, community survival, and national development. The Sustainable Development Goals recognize this truth. SDG 3 explicitly calls for the promotion of mental health and well-being, yet its influence extends far beyond health. It underpins education, gender equality, decent work, and reduced inequalities. In short, there can be no sustainable development without psychological well-being. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in Africa, over 116 million people live with mental health conditions, yet governments often allocate less than $1 per capita to mental health services each year. The result is a staggering treatment gap where up to 85% of those in need receive no care. Still across the continent, professionals are innovating and integrating community approaches using digital tools and contextualizing therapy within African cultural realities. Here in Kenya, some progress is visible. The Mental Health Policy 2015-2030 aligns with Vision 2030, thus supporting our constitutional right to health. Recent legal reforms decriminalizing attempted suicide are landmark steps toward compassion and justice. Yet we must admit, policy must be backed by real investment, workforce strengthening, and the decentralization of services if we are to meet growing needs. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the urgency of this conversation has been amplified by recent Gen Z-led civil unrest in Kenya. Young people burdened by economic hardship, unemployment, and political frustration took to the streets in search of justice and voice. A Geopol 2024 survey showed that over 50% of youth reported heightened anxiety or fear during the protests, while 35% were unable to attend work or school. Many now experience symptoms of collective trauma, chronic stress, fear, and helplessness, and hopelessness as well. This is not unique to Kenya. Globally, UNICEF's 2023 study revealed that 60% of Gen Z youth feel overwhelmed by current events, and over 40% report stigma in seeking help. The digital world that empowers them also exposes them to constant distress. These realities call for urgent intervention and renewed dialogue on how mental health professionals, educators, and policymakers can support a generation in emotional crisis. This conference, ladies and gentlemen, is therefore more than an academic exchange. It is a call to action. Together, we must do the following. 1, invest in evidence-based, community-rooted services integrating mental health into schools, workplaces, and primary care. 2, harness digital innovation from teletherapy to AI-driven support systems while safeguarding ethics, equity, and data privacy. 3, address emerging threats such as climate anxiety, economic precarity, and social unrest that drive psychological distress. And 4, strengthen partnerships between universities, governments, civil society, and faith communities for sustainable impact. And that is what Kabarak University is doing with KUPKA. Number 5, the last one, empower young people through education, mentorship, and platforms for meaningful participation and healing. Therefore, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, mental health is not merely a medical issue. It is intertwined with governance, justice, economics, and identity. The Gen Z movement has reminded us that unresolved social pain manifests psychologically. When left unaddressed, it becomes a societal wound. With those few remarks, it is my distinct honor to declare the Kabarak University International Conference on Psychology and Mental Health and the Kabarak University International Conference on Current Trends in Education Management, Policy, Curriculum Design, and Pedagogy officially opened. That was the message from our Vice Chancellor, Professor Henry Kiplangat. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also privileged to have our two keynote speakers with us this morning. And we want to run very fast so that we can hear from both of them. And the Vice Chancellor would like to take this moment to introduce our two keynote speakers. And I will begin with the one who will come first, and then come back later on behalf of the Vice Chancellor to introduce the next one. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to introduce our keynote speaker for the International Conference on Psychology and Mental Health. The keynote speaker is Professor Frederick Mzee Awuor, the acting Deputy Vice Chancellor for Administration, Planning and Finance, Kisii University. Professor Awuor is an Associate Professor of Computer Science at Kisii University. His research focuses on artificial intelligence, responsible and human-centered computing, wireless network economics, and agriculture informatics, with a strong emphasis on bridging technology and sustainable development in Africa. Professor Awuor is a prolific scholar with numerous publications in high-impact journals and presentations at international conferences. His work advances academic knowledge while addressing global challenges such as food security, ethical AI, and inclusive technology adoption. A co-author of Digital Solutions and the Case for Africa's Sustainable Development, Professor Awuor is a thought leader advocating for ethical and inclusive digital practices. Professor Awuor is also an active mentor, inspiring future innovators and researchers. His contributions exemplify the transformative power of technology aligned with ethical principles. Underline that, with ethical principles, driving progress and sustainable growth in Africa and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Awuor to the podium with a hearty round of applause. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you so much. Good morning. It's an honor to be here today. You'll agree with me that it's nice being a computer scientist because I can fix my own gadget. Wow, thank you so much, Professor. That was an outstanding profile you gave there until I wondered, was that still me or somebody else? So thank you so much. The DVC, Academics and Research, and the acting Vice Chancellor for today, the DVC Finance Administration, members of management of Kabarak University, staffs and students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. It's truly an honor to stand before you today as we gather to reflect, reimagine, and renew our commitment to one of the most vital frontier of human development, mental health, and to do so through a lens that defines our time, innovation, and digitization. So today, nearly every aspect of our lives is touched by digital technology. Every morning, many of us begin our day with a device in hand. Our phones wake us up. Our watches remind us to move, to check our pressure. Our feeds on Facebook and Twitter this morning, I think you are discovering something in the conference room from the social network. So that tells us, actually reminds us what the world is and how the world evolves. And our calendars dictate where we are going or where we should be. From sunrise to sunset, we are tethered to technology. In so many ways, it has become invisible infrastructure of our existence. We no longer simply use technology. Actually, we live through it. Technology is no longer an accessory to life. It is the architecture of our daily lives. So for digital natives, the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, this dependence is not just a habit. It is identity. Technology has made life easier, faster, and even more connected. Today, you can talk to your friend in the US, where you can discover that we have lost a senior citizen of this country abroad through network space. It has opened new frontiers for health, learning, and communication, doors to new knowledge, new networks, and new opportunities. Not even as it simplifies our lives, it quietly reshapes the human experience, including how we feel, how we relate, and how we cope. We are paradoxically more connected today than ever, and yet we are more isolated than you have ever been. How wonderful that could be, or painful it could be. Behind every glowing screen lies a quite human story, a human story of stress, anxiety, loneliness, and sometimes silent suffering. Across Africa, and Kenya in particular, dare I say, we see this reality taking shape. Our continent has experienced one of the fastest digital transformation in the recent past. From a mobile money transfer, we are proud as Kenyans because of M-Pesa. That's our innovation, and among others. And so these have revolutionized how we trade. AI has come, is transforming how we learn, and telemedicine and telehealth is changing how we can access care. But when it comes to mental health, these technologies carry both promise and peril, and I'll be exploring that in a moment. So the promise lies in their reach, in how a young person in Turkana can access a counselor through a phone app. And I dare say, I'm seeing Koseke there. You could access Koseke using a mobile solution, a mobile app. How a chatbot can offer immediate emotional support to someone feeling distressed. Most of us are using ChatGPTs probably to ask a few questions, or Google. In fact, we call them Dr. Google. So Google could provide so much information to us. And so how machine learning can detect early signs of depression from just a speech or text, or how digital communication communities are breaking the silence around mental health illness. So these are not just innovations, these are lifelines, a bridge between despair and hope, between stigma and understanding. But there is also a challenge, one that requires deep reflection. Can we digitize care without losing compassion? Can we automate empathy? In our pursuit of efficiency and scale, we must not forget that mental health care is not just about algorithms. Algorithm from computing is basically a step of doing something. And so if I'm writing a line of code, then how that code is implemented, I'll call that algorithm. And so it's about understanding these algorithms. It's about human connection. It's about trust. It's about dignity in this space of digital era, provide support. So evidently, as we gather here to explore investing in mental health, innovation, and digitization for a sustainable future, we are reminded that our mental well-being is not immune to digital transformation sweeping across the world currently. In fact, it is at the very core of it. So as we shall be exploring shortly, technology can now detect emotional distress through voice patterns, provide therapy through chatbots, connect remote communities to professional help, and and offer hope through virtual care. These are not just innovations. Again, these are lifelines. So the conversation that we must have is not just about how technology can make mental health more accessible or affordable, but about how, together, we can build a future where innovation uplifts the human spirit, where digitization becomes an instrument of healing, not isolation. So looking ahead, I hope to share some insights on digital mental health, our innovations around it, and how to design these innovations in a manner that support human. Already the VC speech has alluded to this discussion that we cannot hide from mental health menace in this country. These are a few extracts from, not quite visible, apologies for that, but that is the People Daily published last October 2nd, 2 weeks ago, and it says that youth suicide crisis calls for urgent action. And Spice FM the other day says that mental health in Kenya should be declared a national emergency. And an opinion leader in this space says that 1 in every 4 young people in Kenya is struggling with their mental health. But too many still suffer in silence. And Nakada echoes the same. And this is repeated over and over and over. This is last week, some young man having breakdown. And so, how is your mental health today? Just pose a question. Are you well? The figures are daunting, really. This is African Population and Health Research Center, published about 2 years ago. And the indications are that our population, 10 to 17 years, you would imagine that kids will not want to be stressed. Actually, they are stressed. They have anxiety, they have depression. And I wouldn't wish that these are just statistics. These have to inform a discussion. And I'm grateful that this conference is converging us here to focus on this. And so, do you know what would be quite interesting is that with all these alarming figures, we only have one mental health hospital, a major one in the country, Mathare. That should echo something to us. So figures on the global gap for mental health treatment can be daunting. In high-income countries, up to 50% of people with mental health disorders receive no treatment. This extends to almost 90% in low-resource settings like ours here, which face the greatest burden of mental ill health. What these statistics hide, however, is the even larger gap in the effective coverage, good quality, accessible services that could actually work. You look at so let us consider average statistics from the US, what I'm calling 40-40-30 rule. I suppose you understand it. 40% of those in need access treatment. Of those who do, 40% will not receive the minimally acceptable treatment. Of those who do receive acceptable care, only 30% will fully benefit. This illustrates that even in one of the world's best resourced mental health system, just a small fraction of the population gets to benefit. So as you can imagine, these statistics would be more profound at home. So at least 7% of Kenyans who need mental health care cannot access it. With only about 200 psychiatrists for 50 million plus people, the gap is huge. And how might we fill this gap of providing access to mental health care? The digital technology can be leveraged. That's the question I'll be posing here. And so as with this gap, then the ideal solution, the ideal way out we would deliver this digital space. And so, while at it, there are 4 components to the gap in effective coverage. And that then has to do with access, has to do with engagement, has to do with quality, and has to do with efficacy. So to fill this gap, we can leverage digital technology in mental health to add scale and efficiency to existing care models. The goal cannot be to have services similar to face-to-face care, but cheaper. Digital innovation is needed at every stage of the system to rethink and redesign what is deliverable, how it is delivered, who it is for, and how to know if it works. So then that brings me to my question, what I would have called thesis of my discussion. What then is digital mental health? So this has to do with an example, you having a smartphone, a smartwatch in your hand to track how you are doing. So mood track or mood trackers, users track their moods over time to identify patterns and triggers for their mental health issues like Dailyo system does. Or think of Calm system application or Headspace application that supports with meditation and relaxation. Or think of this group on Facebook where you could basically connect people that have a similar experience like yours in a space they're calling safe space, just to share what you're going through, virtual support group. Or it would be a virtual reality therapy where you would immerse yourself in a setup and an environment that, of course, controlled, that would help you just unwind and try to share what you're going through. So what digital technology for me would be in form of a broader definition. As use of internet-connected devices and software for the promotion, prevention, assessment, treatment, and management of mental health, either as a standalone tool or integrated with additional services. In global healthcare, there's no area with as wide a treatment gap as mental health, where the majority of needs go unmet across high, middle, and low-income countries alike. Fortunately, the nature of mental health interventions make them uniquely well positioned to benefit from digital innovation at every stage, from prevention and assessment to intervention, monitoring, and management. In the recent years, there's been an explosion of new digital tools to improve mental health, developed by researchers, companies. They'll be sharing some of the work you're doing in that space, and consumers themselves. Some of these tools have already helped to rapidly improve access and quality, while others have underperformed, of course. Now, the sector is at a critical inflection point. The integration of technologies need to combine the best of user engagement, clinical science, and business model innovation. In achieving these changes, there is the opportunity to create a significant advance towards better quality and coverage for mental health. So many fields of healthcare talk about digital health innovation or revolution as a result of the rapid increase in the use of mobile phones and mobile internet at all age. Of course, it cuts across every space, and you can't, of course, leave out the advancements in technology like AI. However, the opportunity in mental health care is unique, supported by factors including the ability to improve care anonymously and ubiquitously, instantaneous access in moments of acute crisis and vulnerabilities. So you want to access services when you want it. It should be then and there. The ability to rapidly scale up during periods of acute need, such as after humanitarian crisis or during pandemics. Or the functionalities to passively and objectively monitor behaviors that indicate someone's mental health status, such as sleep patterns, social interactions, and mood. or the potential for giving a voice to people with lived experience of mental health issues who have historically experienced stigma, underrepresentation, and lack of prioritization by decision makers. And of course, a particularly strong reach for adolescents and young adults, the critical stage at which most serious lifelong mental health conditions develop and are more easily preventable. For these reasons, digital mental health is already ahead of other healthcare domains in many aspects, representing the largest focus of areas for disease-specific mobile apps available online. So with the advent of digital approaches to mental health, tools such as AI are being explored for prediction, detection, and treatment solutions in mental health. And so this then brings me to digital phenotyping, a moment at which you're able to pick real-time data of the users or of the client or of the patient, reflecting on their behaviors, emotions, and even from the functional data collected from the device itself. So this mostly will be wearable devices like smartwatch, necklaces, or basically just connect devices. I'll talk about that in a moment too. And of course, other technologies that have come of age would be natural language processing, chatbot conversational technologies, and of course, all this then has to be an aspect of responsible design. And a new term is coming to the market right now. It's psychoinformatics, basically psychology combining with informatics. And here, we try to use tools and technologies or techniques from computer science for the acquisition, organization, and analysis of data collected from psychology to reveal information about behavior and psychological traits. So you'd imagine it here. So with a device, with your phone, when you know the phone is very interesting. That's called a smartphone. So this phone has microphones. This phone has access to, it has GPS for location. So when you're using all these sensors, we call them sensors, whether it is the one that tells you how long you have walked, that will be gyroscope, which is and gives you movement. Or you think of the location, the GPS. Or you think of is a phone screen on or off? If it is on, of course, you're using it. If it is, is there noise around you? All this data can be collected from your device. And by the way, and that is why you should always ensure that you don't give permission to other applications to pick that data. Back to my discussion. This data can then be used to infer a couple of things. Your GPS can tell us where you are, whether you are at home or you are in your office, or can even be inferred if you're walking around, whatever you're doing. From that low-level inference, we can move to high-level inference to reduce even behaviors. We could say that today you sound like you are sleep-deprived because we noted that at 3 in the morning, no, at 12 in the evening, in the night, you are on your phone, and by 2 in the morning, you're also on your phone. And the third time, you're on phone. And you can even take notice of what you're doing. And of course, you are home. So we know that you are in bed. The noise around you, there was no, from ambient, a microphone can give us that. I can know that from the microphone, I can know that there's no noise around you. And ambient light, when your phone decides to be a bit bright or a bit dull, it knows that it's supposed to be bright because it's night. No, dull, of course, because it's night, and bright because there's a lot of sun. With that information, we can then infer that you're at home and look like you're not having a good sleep. From there, then I can infer that you are sleep deprived. I don't know. Peradventure, this kind of data could infer so many things that then can help us support therapists to provide a more personalized and tailored support to the clients. So with digital phenotyping, of course, with this sensor data I've talked about, you can infer so many things I just mentioned, and that helps us then to reduce or detect and deliver support that the person may require just on time when it needs it. And then that takes us to another amazing space called natural language processing, what I'm calling NLP here, a subfield of AI. And with this, we can infer what you are feeling by what you are saying. So if right now I'm talking a bit fast, you can say that, look, it's like he's anxious. Or if my speech pattern like now is word by word, you could say it looks like he's now keen on what he's saying. All that we can infer from the natural language processing. And a post here, this is from Gideon, said that people with depression use language differently. Here's how to spot it. You can Google this online. So basically, I can use natural language processing to know if you are depressed. And that does not just stop there. Whether you are, whether you are talking at a loud, you are shouting, you can look at the acoustic aspects of your speech, the volume, the pitch, the intonations, to infer a couple of things about your state of mind. And so that support can be given to us using natural language processing. And of course, this is what is built, what is used to build a couple of a chatbot that we have around. And of course, then that takes us to chatbot. And so chatbot is basically just a computer program that mimics conversation with users via chat interface with either text or voice. Either you're going to type something like you do in ChatGPT, or you're going to talk and the system responds back to you. And so interestingly, the first well-known chatbot is Eliza, which was built sometime in the 60s by a computer scientist, Weisbaum. And interestingly, he was using this to simulate how Rogerian psychotherapist would rephrase as questions. And so the chatbot borrows starts its lifespan from the psychology use case. And so all this and others, there is Replica. Replica is interesting. There are people who now feel that it's been banned from the market. Replica was so personal to some people that it became now harmful to people in aspect of the privacy, and people are even now started advocating for its regulations. So somebody said that I tried the Replica AI companion and can see why users are falling hard. The app raises serious ethical questions. So to this end, what then I would share with us is that these technologies are available and they're helping us support the mental health. But the question then that comes in is that if you're going to over-rely on these apps as they have just been alluded here, AI-based companions like Replica are harmful to privacy and should be regulated. Then the question now is looks like we still need these applications. Chatbot that can carry out a proper psychotherapeutic conversational session or sessions and replicate human therapists remain to be seen. If you could have one, it would be awesome. But won't it be important that we have, what is the boundary in using these solutions? I want to hold that thought there and jump a little bit just to give you an insight on how far innovations in this space have gone. There is at least 21% of all the solutions being developed in this space. At least 21 are on mental health apps, 27%. There's some focusing on the digital therapeutic, 9%. So at least about 40% of applications in digital health are focusing on digital mental health. And from that graph, you notice that it's look like it's growing. So the growing pace and success of digital mental health applications has helped to address the global treatment gap. Yet many expectations for the sector have not been realized as quickly as hoped. Improvements in access, efficacy, and outcome have mainly been marginal rather than revolutionary. Despite a surge in new investment and research in recent years, the collective evidence for the real-world impact that digital technologies can make on mental health at a mass scale is still emerging and positive, but not yet conclusive. So the graph shows the rapid growth of mental health startups under their categories of service. Today, the sector is at critical inflection point. And what really brings our attention now is, where is the academia and where is the government backing up? Because what we're seeing are individuals who are coming up to support mental health. So these tools are often rigorously researched, yes, but from the private sector. We have also seen innovations that are being driven by the customers or consumers or clients directly. For example, only 1 out of the 73 top-ranking mental health apps in the study carried out by, that gentleman there, were designed or developed by the corporate, backed by the government. So, I'm seeing my time is really quick here. I was told to take 30 minutes. So I would want to request 5 more minutes so that I do 32 or 33 minutes, if you allow me. Thank you. So quickly, allow me to share with us the attributes to fulfill towards deriving a potential digital mental health solution. So one, we have to move from apps that are singleton to integrated open system, operating systems for care. So we have to shift from isolated tools to integrated multifunctional platforms or digital ecosystem that work across entire mental health pathway. We also need to harness the lessons of how to simultaneously achieve high level of efficacy and engagement by combining the expertise of researchers, companies, and end users. And of course, this has to focus on the support from academia, the government, and definitely the ecosystem that it plays in. And of course, also increase the level of innovation geared towards low resource setting so that new tools can better address inequalities and everyone can benefit from low-cost solutions. And last, need to build tools that are trustable to reduce risks and protect users from potential harm. So then, at that point, if you had to forget all that I've discussed, kindly, I want you to listen to this story. Adam was just 16 years old. He turned to ChatGPT in a crisis. Now, he's dead. And his family is suing OpenAI, newly released. So the OpenAI then newly released a blog that made very striking admissions. As ChatGPT adoption has grown worldwide, I'm quoting what OpenAI said, we have seen people turn to it not just for search, coding, and writing, but also deeply personal decisions that include life advice, coaching, and support. If someone expresses suicidal intent, ChatGPT is trained to direct people to seek professional help. In the US, to dial 988, and in the UK, to look for Samaritan, or maybe check worldwideweb.findhelpline.com. ChatGPT is positioned as a first line of response for people with in acute distress. But here is my concern. To whom do we place responsibility? First, you notice that they didn't tell us where to search, who to call if you're in Kenya. They only gave us UK and US. But well, the system belonged to the US, so we need to develop our own. But in the context of the picture, that is Adams. And Adams, that is CNN reporting that Adams committed suicide aided by ChatGPT. On the right is a report by New York Times on how Adam did confide in ChatGPT. This data is available online. So back to my concern, a chatbot cannot carry the legal and ethical duty of a clinician. Yet OpenAI is edging into a therapeutic role, encouraging people to rest, reach out, even talking about one-click connection to therapists. That is not just a tool. That to me sounds like healthcare without accountability. At the same time, OpenAI says we are working closely with 90+ physicians across 30+ countries. That is psychiatrists, pediatricians, practitioners, psychologists, to ensure our approach reflects the latest research and best practices. This is so confusing because digital mental health support must do better. If you're acting on expert medical advice, you are acknowledging responsibility. If you are deflecting it by claiming to be just a tool, you are shrinking it. You cannot have it both ways. And to double down, OpenAI refuses to alert law enforcement in self-harm cases to respect a due of respect or privacy. It sounds protective, but leaves a gaping ethical gap. They intervene just enough to suggest hotlines or loved ones, yet stop short of the legal duty of care and real professional care. OpenAI wants the authority of a doctor without a duty of care. So what then is the responsible digital mental health and the issues of therapeutic alliance in the digital mental health space? And so to me, digital mental health solutions have to adhere to the responsible design. So as we embrace digital revolution in mental health, one truth must remain at the center of our effort. Just because we can innovate doesn't always mean we should, at least not without responsibility. Digital mental health solutions hold enormous promise. They can reach people where the traditional system cannot. They can listen, learn, and respond at scale, but mental health is not just another data stream. It is the most intimate reflection of who we are. When we design systems that engage with human mind, we are entering a sacred ground. That is why responsible design is not optional, it is ethical necessity. And so this has to do with fairness and biases. The algorithms must serve everyone equally. You should not be able to treat me better because of my gender. So if a data set, remember that these solutions are built from data sets. So if data set reflects certain population, our digital tools risk excluding or misdiagnosing others. So chatbots trained on Western data may misinterpret an African expression of distress. So fairness in design means that inclusion begins not at deployment, but at development. And these others would mean that explainability and interpretability, I should be told how the system works, really. I'm the user of that system. So as a client, at least let me know how the system works. Ensure that my data cannot be leaked, cannot be stolen. So assure me of some sort of security. So, and others, be it robustness, be it accountability. Because of time, I'm not going to discuss each of that. But just wind this up, I would say that responsible design is therefore not just about protecting users. It's about honoring humanity. It asks us to blend ethics with engineering, compassion with computation, and wisdom with innovation. So as Africa, and of course I dare say Kenya, and the world accelerates into digital mental health frontier, let us ensure that our progress is not just fast, but fair. Not just intelligent, but humane. Because the future of mental health should not be built on technology, should be built around people. And then that takes me to this last bit on therapeutic alliance. Apparently, as a therapist, you develop a bond built on a goal and a task that you want to achieve with your client. And so when you talk about therapeutic alliance, we're really talking about the heart of healing. That bond of trust, that empathy, that shared purpose between therapist and client But as we scale to leverage digital mental health space, where is this therapeutic alliance? What I'll be describing a digital therapeutic alliance. So, can we still speak of empathy when the therapist is a screen? Can we still build trust when the system learns but does not feel? I'm not sure if AI feels. If it does feel, then Adam would be alive. Can a machine ever be truly present? These are not rhetorical questions, colleagues, because without some form of digital therapeutic alliance, a connection between the user and their digital mental health companion, even the most advanced tools risk feeling cold, mechanical, and disengaged. So how do we address this? We must then reimagine presence in the design. We must embed empathy in the design. We must keep human in the loop. And we must build trust through transparency as we develop these solutions. So then I pose the question I've been saving for the end of my discussion. If therapy depends on presence and healing depends on connection, can technology ever replace the human touch that make both possible? I could ask this question a different way. If machines can already assess, formulate, intervene, and even evaluate outcomes, then what exactly is left for psychologists to do? That question captures both the wonder and unease of our time. No wonder you guys are so quiet right now. AI can listen to tone and language, detect emotional stress, and even suggest therapeutic responses with precision that rivals and sometimes surpasses human judgment. Digital platform can deliver cognitive behavioral therapy modules, monitor progress, and generate feedback instantly. So, where in all this efficiency does human therapist fit? Some might say the role is fading, that the future belongs to AI-driven interventions, virtual companions, and predictive models that can focus risks long before crises strike. But I would argue the opposite. The role of psychologists is not disappearing. It is deepening. Because while machines can process symptoms, they cannot witness suffering. They can measure affect, but not feel empathy. They can track progress, but not hold presence. Therapy, at its core, is not just a science. It's a sacred space of human connection. It is where stories are told, silences are held, and trust is slowly built, and the trust cannot be programmed. And I cannot program trust as a computer scientist. And so this question that machines can do most of psychologists' job, the industry must prepare for disruption, I think is vague. It's cliche. Presence is not about being in the same room. It's about being emotionally available. Connection is not about proximity. It's about response. It's the felt sense of being understood without judgment. The technology can facilitate both through telepathy, through teletherapy, chatbot-based counseling, and even AI companions that offer comfort. But what it cannot replicate is the moral imagination of human being. The ability to perceive another's pain, to interpret it through compassion, and respond not only with logic, but with love. Because when all the data has been analyzed and all the algorithms have spoken, what still holds, what will always heal is a human touch. And so, human and machine definitely is better than. If I'm to take human and add machine to it, that's better than human working alone. And if I'm to take human and machine, that can't be better than the machine. And so digital innovation can transform access to care, but the essence of healing still lives in the human space. And I dare say that machines will not replace practitioners, but practitioners using machines will replace practitioners not using machine. It is us to embrace this to make our work more better. On that space, as I wind up, we are doing something. If you get time, look at Tulia Mind. Tulia Mind is an application, digital health, mental health application to support people through counseling, virtual space. You can engage with a therapist and get supported. We are doing, we are at alpha stage, beta stage, sorry, so you could have a look at it sometime. So thank you so much for listening. It's been an honor.
Let us give Prof another round of applause. Thank you very much, Prof, for that presentation. I'm sure there are a lot of issues you have raised that we wish to discuss. I would like to request the conference administrators and managers to create time this afternoon, because the next speaker is coming now. That means we have space this afternoon so that the conference participants can interact with the presentation from Professor Mzee Ogur. Thank you very much, Prof. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we have talked about contemporary issues in education, and we have talked about psychology and mental health, we can take the academic approach which we have taken. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the spiritual approach, where God and get our sustenance, spiritual sustenance from God to guide us through the maze of life. And here at Kabarak University, we provide that opportunity. In the next 30 minutes, we're heading to the University Chapel service. The opportunity to connect with God for our spiritual sustenance and health. But before that, we are also privileged to have our next keynote speaker for the part to do with contemporary issues in education. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker for the International Conference on Current Trends in Education Management, Policy, Curriculum Design, and Pedagogy is Professor Chris Udindo, Associate Professor for Student Exchange, De Montfort University, United Kingdom. The real United Kingdom, sio ile ya Kisumu. Professor Udindo is an award-winning higher education leader and AI strategist at the forefront of digital transformation and educational innovation. With a career spanning the UK and Africa, he bridges academic leadership, technology, entrepreneurship, and national policy influence. Professor Udindo is the founder of BAL AI, an education-focused AI enterprise delivering custom GPTs, adaptive learning systems, and AI adoption roadmaps for universities and government agencies. His leadership has shaped institutional AI strategies in the United Kingdom and Kenya, and informed national artificial intelligence task forces, including Kenya's NRF AI and the Commission for University Education's AI Plus accreditation system. Professor Odindo co-authored the Montfort University's AI strategy and has pioneered AI integrated teaching and learning, adaptive learning platforms, and student success initiatives. His work is widely recognized for advancing responsible AI governance, digital pedagogy, and equitable student financing models. His innovative approach has improved quality assurance, inclusivity, and student engagement, earning him multiple Vice Chancellor's Distinguished Teaching Awards and the Academic Innovation Project Award for AI in Higher Education. A sought-after international keynote speaker, Professor Dindo has addressed forums across the United Kingdom and Africa, including the African Design Thinking Summit and the UK-Kenya Vice Roundtable, which he founded to foster research and educational diplomacy. Beyond academia, Professor Dindo contributes to public policy on AI in education, health, and cultural heritage, leading efforts to build Kenya's first indigenous language model. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Professor Odindo to the digital for this conference. If you are following us, okay, and we are very eager to see your face.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Prof.
Okay, excellent. Can you see my face?
Not yet. It is still in the digital space, almost arriving in Kenya.
Can you see the slides, though?
Yeah, our technicians are connecting your face. So just give them a few seconds.
Okay, excellent.
There.
My slides are there, I'm assuming. They've arrived.
Oh, yeah, just a few seconds. And then we want to see your face first before the slides arrive.
Okay.
So that we can be assured that we are engaging with Professor Odindo. Technical line is working, Prof. Don't give up yet.
No. I am evidence them. Is it?
Yes, your voice is coming through very clearly.
Fantastic. Now that is
there
my
you are,
image.
Prof. Face. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. Still morning here. It's a few minutes after 9. I had fast. If you see, do you know that it's because I've not had chai? Issues that you will face when it comes to thrive and survive in the age of AI. Now, to imagine this, let's start by us thinking about this. And I want you to imagine this. What you have in front of you is a single prompt that took less than 2 minutes and that provided the slogans, ranked them, and what I simply asked the AI was to think of a business project and then develop a financial plan, develop a marketing plan, launch a demo website, and it did that in a matter of 2 minutes. The challenge I want to throw to you, if you're in the School of Business and Economics at Kabarak, is this. What does this mean for you? If you have students, what does this mean for you if you are in the School of Business? And I'm saying imagine that, but I will tell you that this is not about imagination anymore. This is no longer about imagination because these are things that are happening already at the moment. The next thing I wanted to imagine, and the purpose of this session really is to try and get you to think about AI beyond ChatGPT or beyond students cheating in exams. So with a single prompt, I did, the AI wrote a script for me. It extracted the file information and presented it visually. As you can see that it plotted the heat maps. Again, what does this mean for research and analysis at Kabarak University? If you're still going to be using manual methods to be able to extract information and present that, then there is a question that you need to think about and address. The next slide looks at something else that is happening. And again, we have seen this. This is my good friend at Harvard, Brian, has been doing this. And I was fortunate to be in Boston when he launched this. And the idea here is that you're looking at an AI that is going to understand and accurately diagnose the cancer that you may be having in your body. And not just that, it is going to be able to allow for the doctor or the researchers to be able to understand the environment around the cancer itself. Again, if you're in the School of Medicine and Health Sciences and you're not thinking about this, then perhaps it is time that you started thinking about this. The next, imagine this. And I said, I woke up this morning thinking that let me be controversial, confrontational.
Kindly bear with us. We are just reconnecting. I think Zoom stopped at some point. Our speaker is waiting for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we wait for the technical team to fix our issue, I'd like to invite you, if you have any questions concerning the previous presentations, you can ask. Now is the time. Just raise up your hand, I'll hand you the mic, wherever you are. So there being no questions, I'd like to invite Dr. Murundu. She will take charge of the entertainment sector just briefly before our technical team is up and running. Dr. You are welcome. Okay. The entertainers, you are welcome. I'd like to start with the debaters. We had a debate on the motion, contemporary issues and practices in education. You're going to take only 10 minutes. You're welcome. 5 minutes.
Hello. The navigator's compass, please take the stage. The navigator's compass, take the stage. Very fast, just 5 minutes.
Prof, you're back. You can proceed. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello?
Are we back?
Kindly. Sorry for that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
No problem.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? And can you see my
Yes.
slides? That's
Yes,
what's
we
important.
We can hear you. The slide a bit tiny, but go ahead.
Oh, the slides shouldn't be tiny.
Okay.
The slide should not be tiny, so let's adjust. Are they better now?
Yes, proceed, kindly.
Okay.
Increase
Can you see
again,
me?
Increase again.
Okay, excellent. Yes. So the wonders of technology. We sometimes depend on technology, but it's always good to know that things can sometimes not work. So moving on. So my thinking this morning when I woke up is to be a little bit confrontational and jar you into thinking, because in all my travels, whether that's in Boston, New York, Paris, Rwanda, Kigali, Kenya, when I speak to people in the education sector, they have, to a large extent, this thought process that AI is about students, it's about students cheating. And my purpose today is just to tell you that there is a significant disruption in terms of the curricula and what we deliver as universities that we need to think about. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're the head of school at of the law, head of school at law, and you've got in your inbox, you have this item that says that now an AI law firm has been approved and that will offer business individual legal advice. Again, what do you do, and what does this mean for you if you're the dean of the School of Law, or if you're delivering lectures in the School of Law? And this is a question that I want you to keep pondering on as we discuss some of the disruptive nature of the technology. And it's not, and this cuts across all the schools in Kabarak and any other institutions. Vibe coding, the previous Prof. Award will probably tell you that a large proportion of the software that is developed on GitHub is developed by AI. Vibe coding is something that has come in recent years, recent months, to be at the forefront of software engineering and software development. And you're seeing more and more. Right now it's clunky and it's not really the best, but it is set to improve with the reasoning capabilities of the technology. The question for you then is this: what does this mean for students who are in your computing classes? What does this mean for prospective students who want to come in and take computer science at Kabarak University and your curricula? Because AI can do this. It's not science fiction. I'm saying imagine this, but it is not science fiction at all. To make matters worse, what you're starting to see is that you're starting to see employers right across the world, particularly in the West, talking about not needing any software engineers. You see Salesforce. Salesforce is probably a good example. Salesforce is one of the largest organizations in the world. It hires software engineers, and they have said that clearly that in 2025, they're not hiring any more software engineers. You see that JP Morgan, Microsoft, and that is something that is coming. The question then is this: if you're seeing this as something that's developing, and this is a disruption in the sector, why is it that you are not looking at how to change your curricula? So that's what I want you to be thinking about this if you're in these particular schools. What does this mean for you? And what does this mean for prospective students? Because a prospective student is going to look at this and ask themselves this question: why am I paying fees for 3 years at Kabarak, and yet when I leave after 3 years, I may not necessarily get a job because vibe coding is going to be absolutely fine. It's absolutely going to be huge. So that's a question that we will address a little bit later on. Still on this thinking about AI and the implications of AI, I want you to see this, because this is really one of the first totally generated ad for Volvo, and this is being used in Volvo markets across I think it's in Saudi Arabia and across some of their markets. And when you watch this for a few minutes or for a few seconds, think about it in this context. No human being, no actors were involved in this. All this is AI generated, and a company, a business, has used AI to create a product such as this, and it's being shown for consumers in their marketplace.
Challenges didn't hold us back. They pushed us forward. Every obstacle, every doubt shaped us into
We can't hear you, Prof. Maybe your sound. Unmute.
We vow.
What about now?
Always come back stronger. Challenges. Challenge.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Continue.
Brilliant. So, the previous slide I said, so again, the question then is what does that mean for your curricula? The challenge for us as academics is to go beyond just thinking about ChatGPT as what AI is, and that's the implication for our curricula, for our assessments, because I find that quite limited. You need to think about what can we add value in a world whereby advertisements, companies are using AI to generate the complete advert, from writing the scripts, from generating avatars, from creating the music and creating the brand colors. Where does that leave a student who's currently in your School of Media Studies? Because unless we start thinking about that, we will come across a fundamental issue that I will speak about a little bit later on. And the final thing I want to do in terms of looking at this in terms of imagination is by 2026, we will start having employers having an AI as an employee with a login, permissions, and employee IDs. Again, what does that mean for institutions like Kabarak, where you're supposed to be preparing students for a world of work? Are we preparing them enough to be able to not just understand the domain knowledge, that is the chemistry, the pharmacy, the drugs, and so on and so forth, and on top of that, are we also preparing them for a world whereby when they start working, they will probably be working with an AI collaborator, an AI team worker? Are we doing that? The reality is that this is happening, and this is likely to happen as time goes by. The question for you and us and myself as an academic is, are we preparing our students? Are we changing our curriculum? Are we developing the skill sets necessary for them to be able to live in a world whereby the person they're collaborating with in a team is an AI who thinks faster, who works faster than them, thinks better than them, and is able to produce a multitude of things? Now, I deliberately want to spend some time just getting you to think about these things and get you to move away from the idea that AI is ChatGPT, because I see that a lot in my travels. I do apologize if you haven't had lunch or you're, I think it's not lunchtime yet there. But this, again, this is photography from AI. This is the prompt I use. Again, what are we doing in terms of our curricula? Are we still teaching students to take photographs? Are we still teaching students to think about media in the style of the old perhaps a century, if I may call it that way? Are we preparing students to be in a world whereby with just a few sentences, you can be able to come up with a fantastic product, picture, image that is as realistic and that can be passed on as the real product? So the first few slides really was getting you to think about AI beyond ChatGTP. I wanted you to think about what kind of world and what kind of curricula and what kind of value will you be adding if you're in the School of Business and AI can be able to develop marketing, financial plan, website, slogans, logo, and social media all in 3 minutes or so. If you're in the School of Pharmacy and you have AlphaFold that can be able to generate 3D structures of molecules that will help you develop medicines that are useful for Kenyans, and you're not using that. If you're in physics and you can be able to now use material physics in things like graphene and so on and so forth. So that's a challenge that I'm throwing at you throughout this session, and I want you to leave as you leave and you remember that AI is something that goes beyond writing of essays. Yeah. So what is generative AI? I'm not going to talk about this, I think, because of the time. I won't spend too much time looking at the technical aspects. But suffice to say that AI similar to human neurons. Human neurons, we think primarily how we think primarily is through neurons. Neurons connect each other. Our neurons connect each other within the brains, and we have 86 billion neurons in our brains, and that is what helps us learn, think, and so on and so forth. Similarly, with AI, we have things which are called parameters, and those parameters, the more number of parameters, and we talk about billions parameters, those are the things that make it easier for the computers to be able to make those connections, to learn and create synthetic artifacts like code, like images, like video, like music, and so on and so forth. So that is the essence of what AI is, and generative AI. And how this is relevant, why this is relevant to us in academia is that has significantly changed the world of work. It has significantly changed discovery. It has significantly changed how we approach dealing with issues that faced us in the past. And therefore, if we recognize that, then it's important that we recognize this and look at our institutions and ask ourselves this question: what do we need to do different in a world whereby the computer systems, the AI systems, can be able to generate lifelike images, can be able to generate music, code, can be able to write research papers in minutes, can be able to read millions and millions and millions of research papers and synthesize, summarize them, can be able to start. Nowadays, you can even have AI supported robotics that's doing heart surgery and so on. And they're trained on large, massive data sets. So, for example, the Mayo Clinic is Professor Ward talked about Dr. Google. Mayo Clinic is been trialing a doctor that is AI driven, a medical doctor that is AI driven. And what they found, actually Stanford found this, is that if you had the AI take second year Stanford University medical tests, the AI beat 87% of the students who are taking a second year Stanford medical, which is very hard to get into university medical test. I'm going to pause for effect here. And the reason I want to pause for effect is this, that Prof. Awor talked about replica. Replica is one of those things that was set up as initially as a very helpful tool. But then eventually the boundaries between the tool, the AI, and the individual's blood. And in some cases, some people fell in love with replica, and they were getting much more intimate and emotionally involved with replica. What that meant was that they were starting to form unhealthy relationships, and eventually that led to a big cry in the US, and replica removed some of the settings that allowed people to form this unhealthy bonds, love, if I may call it that way, with replica. And suddenly when people woke up in the morning, as when replica had been trained by themselves to wake them up and say, "Good morning, darling, and how are you today?" and so on and so forth. The romantic aspect of that, the synthetic romantic aspect of it, which some people had got used to it, went. And some studies have shown that the people who had those quite attached romantic relationships with replica felt as if they have been divorced, felt as if they had relationships that are broken down or they've been dumped, and they ended up going to therapy, to actual physical. And the reason why that is because the boundary between technology and humans is become so blurred. And the evidence of that is when earlier this year, the large language models passed the Turing test. What that means is that it is now harder to distinguish between a conversation that you're having with a human and a conversation you're having with an algorithm like an AI. The Turing test was set up so that you can make that distinction, that if you are seated behind a wall and you're talking to something or someone, an entity behind that wall, you can be able to make a judgment that, no, I'm talking to a human being, and no, I am talking to a machine. And that was the test that was supposed to show that individually we are not similar to machines. That is gone. So 73% of the humans, when they looked at GPT 4.5, and this is 4.5, we're in 5 now, believed that the AI they were talking to was a human in that sense. So the advances in AI have been remarkable, especially in the last couple of years. And one of the things that when I was in the government task force, the UK National Task Force, one of the things that we were focusing on at that time, and the Prime Minister had told us that we need to focus on, was how do we make sure that we provide guardrails around the AI technology in such a way that we're able to not regulate, but we're able to get people to use them in a safe, responsible manner. Now, and the reason why that was important is because the real and potential world applications of generative AI are massive. from content writing to natural language generation to molecular design and so on and so forth, to synthetic data generation and personalized medicine and drug discovery. Again, if you're in the School of Sciences and Medicine, if you're or a pharmacy student in Kabarak, in the School of Pharmacy, really, by now you should be, and if you're an academic there, in your curricula, you should be talking about things like AlphaFold. You should be talking about things like the generative molecular structures, the 3D generative molecular structures, because those are the things that will allow your school and your course to become relevant in a world that we are facing in this near future. Let's bring it down to HE. I think there are a number of things that are possible in terms of the and the big one is that it allows a level playing field. So it offers both students and educators a chance to speed up their learning. It offers them to think about discovery and innovation. So the implications are absolutely massive in terms of transformation. But the challenges, though, and this goes to the nub of this discussion, the challenges, and when I talk about curricula in a second or two, we will see that I've showed you videos that are AI generated where the company simply used AI to do everything: script writing, filmography, photography, brand colors, voice, music. All those 5 things are being done by AI, and I've shown you Volvo doing an advert like that. What does this mean? It means that we as institutions are going to face a reduction in enrollment because students are going to ask that question. Why am I in institution whereby I'm spending 4 years or 3 years learning about business, yet I can create a business plan, financial plan, marketing plan using AI in a few seconds? They will lead to a loss of trust, and that will provide an issue with financial instability. We are starting to see that in England. My institution, we've lost 25% of students in the last year or 2. We have had a reduction in enrollment. We've just finished a recruitment campaign, and the sum total of the number we have lost over the last 2 years is almost a quarter, 25%, which means that we have 25% less in terms of the income. And that means that we cannot spend more on teachers, we cannot spend more on buildings. And that is something that is happening, and it is going to, and it's likely to happen also in here. So as a university, you need to think about how do we challenge and how do we address this. But for me, to my mind, what's really, really important is the third question, which is over-reliance on AI and homogenization of thought. Both the MC and Professor Wood talked about AI and the need for us to also be cautious when we are dealing with AI through ethics and responsibilities. And that's something that's important we need to think about. Developing strategies, of course, I keep saying this everywhere I go, that when we develop strategies, when you think about guarding disruption, and this is the first note that I wrote for our University Leadership Board, was what do we do? And the things that I told them is, of course, we need to think about integrating AI in the curriculum. I was very clear that it's not about getting students to understand what ChatGPT or Gemini or Cloud is. It's about getting and making sure that a student who comes through the university who's an engineering student or a pharmacist or a business student leaves the university with a clear understanding of what exactly it is that if they work